You are listening to Unscripted Moments, a podcast about propaganda. On this episode, we are discussing Fine Day and War is Peace, Slavery is Freedom. May all your interventions be humanitarian. Fine Day is track 19 on Where Quantity is Job 1 compilation. Fine Day appears in the liner notes of Where Quantity is Job 1 double 7-inch, but is not on the actual release. Fine Day is also track 6 on the 1991 pre-How to Clean Everything demo cassette, Fuck the Scene. In the liner notes of Where Quantity is Job 1 CD, Chris writes that the song was recorded in 1991 and then says, in all honesty, I'm not sure I even know where River Heights actually was until 1993. So I don't know where I got off writing a song about it in 1991. Recorded in the filthy shantytowns of Charleswood, according to Wikipedia, Charleswood, quote, is an upscale suburban district known for its open grasslands, aspen-shaded woods, and unpaved roads, end quote.
I love that detail about how they recorded it in Charleswood, and then the details that I was finding about Charleswood and Winnipeg are that it's actually a really nice place, which kind of fits the whole entire Fine Day, song message and everything, which I thought was really funny.
That's great.
So this is a really fascinating one because we have the other version of this song. It's called War is Peace, Slavery is Freedom, May All Your Interventions Be Humanitarian, which is track 16 on the 2001 Fat Music Volume 5, Live Fat, Die Young compilation from Fat Records, that series that has come up so often on this show and turned so many listeners around the world onto this band. So the lyrics are printed inside that compilation. I have it on vinyl. I got one of the recent repressings that Fat did, and I realized that this was the only place that I could get this song as a physical copy these days. So I went ahead and bought that because it's nice to have it as like a person who wants to have everything from this band. I went ahead and bought that recent reissue of Fat Music Volume 5. But the liner notes have something inside that says, music written summer 1990, lyrics written summer 2000, reluctantly reproduced summer 2000, cringe. And then a link also reads, go to lbbs.org, but that website today takes me to a hotel in Mallorca. So I managed to get in touch with the band a little bit about some of the details for recording this song, and I got a reply, and the reply said, as I recall it, the music was recorded during the Today's Empires, Tomorrow's Ashes sessions at Motor Studios, and we recorded the vocals at Mid-Can here in Winnipeg. Chris, Todd, and Jord appear on this recording. So this is a really interesting tune, man, where we have two different eras of the band that sort of, talk to each other, from 1990 version of the band and the 2000 version of the band, which is, those two eras are pretty different. We had a lineup change. We have a significant change in sound from what we know is like the How to Clean Everything sound versus the Today's Empires sound. So we're hearing the Today's Empires lineup play something that was written before How to Clean Everything. And it's just a really neat way that the two eras of the band speak to each other.
Do we know if anyone in the band has any investment in that hotel in Mallorca?
That would be actually really, really amazing. This is a really fun tune, and I've never actually been to Mallorca. I've been to. I would love to go. Maybe I'll use that as the universe saying to me that this is the hotel that I need to stay at when I go on my amazing Mallorca vacation. What do you think?
It would be crazy for you not to do it at this point.
My destiny is written now. I'm going to Mallorca and I'm staying at lbbs.org. Amazing. All right. So Steve, what have you been up to since we last hung out recording the absolutely bonkers How to Clean Everything 30th anniversary episode and the Fidalis Hearse episode, both of which I loved doing in May of 2023. And here we are a month later, in June 2023, talking about this next tune. What have you been up to in the last month?
First of all, I can't believe it's been a month since we've recorded an episode. So
I was so tired.
Big shout out to you for just cranking out content while I've been off doing other stuff.
No, I was so tired. I got a submission from Seth from Arms Aloft. He did a cover for the How to Clean Everything 30th anniversary, but he was kind of like late on it. So I did a little teeny tiny 5-minute bonus episode for the How to Clean Everything 30th anniversary appendix episode with Seth from Arms Aloft. That was really cool. And then I did a conversation with my friend Jeff, who went with me to 3 of those Ontario shows in the spring of 2022. So we did a little recap a year later about a Bangers Embrace style, trip that we did to watch Propaganda 3 nights in a row. So I've been pretty chill. I've been riding my bike. I've been, hanging out and relaxing and enjoying the beginning of the beautiful summer months here in the Toronto, Buffalo, Niagara region. And I've just been kind of relaxing on this because I was so exhausted from our How to Clean Everything and Fadala's episodes that I just kind of detached my brain for a little bit to get us to where we are today.
It was nice. Yeah, I've been pretty busy. I've been doing like a lot of work around the house. I made some sweet Van Halen cornhole.
Oh yeah, I saw those. Called.
I made those, and I went beginning of June. I went to Tied Down Festival in Detroit, which was insane.
Yeah, how was that?
Oh man, like so many of my favorite bands played. Like it was awesome seeing Earth Crisis again. Drain played, Gorilla Biscuits, God's Hate, Incendiary, Inclination. Like it was just like a heavy hitters hardcore fest, and it did not let down. Like it was just so fun. Like I hadn't been to like a proper hardcore fest in years. I kind of like self-admittedly, I kind of lost touch with hardcore for about 10-ish years around late 2000s up until maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I kind of paused it and went heavy into the power metal, but I'm full blown back in hardcore. It was just so awesome to be in that environment, seeing all those awesome bands, and there was lots of hilarious shenanigans that happened in Detroit. Like we had an Uber driver that ran red lights just seemingly for fun and then dropped us off in the wrong, nowhere near where we actually wanted to go. So then we called up another Uber driver to take us to the proper location. And the same guy showed up again. And he's like, now I get 2 5-star reviews.
Oh my God. Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, so it was awesome festival. Highly recommend everyone checking out Tied Down Detroit if you're into hardcore. It was phenomenal. And you went to a massive festival in Atlantic City.
Yes, I did. I went to Adjacent Festival on the beach in Atlantic City. And this is a massive brand new festival. It's year one the festival existed. So it was kind of a risk to go to a brand new festival, because it's not tested and tried and true, and everything was being readjusted for the entire weekend. The merch lines were 4 hours some of the times. It was really unbelievable seeing how some of the stuff just wasn't in place because they hadn't ever tested this festival out before. So I did not even bother looking at merch. I don't even know what they were selling or anything, but I went to Adjacent and I ran into Cheska Colombo, who is the host of the Menzingers Song by Song podcast called On the Impossible Pod. And that was really cool. I ran into a friend of the podcast named Stacy Walker, who lives in Pittsburgh, and we hung out for quite a while. So that was really fun. So it's really cool to see the way that the podcast kind of when you can meet up with people that you've had, friendships over the internet and because of a podcast, and then you actually wind up meeting up in real life. It's really fun. But some of the bands that I saw were obviously the headliners, Blink-182 and Paramore. I saw Coheed in Cambria. I saw Turnstile. I saw Incendiary. I saw Gel. I saw Drug Church. Those were all wonderful. And I saw the Starting Line and, the Movie Life. And so there was a really great lineup of the show. And the scenery was incredible. I was standing right on the beach. It was 70 degrees and sunny. like the whole entire 2 days of the festival. So it wasn't blazing hot, but it also wasn't like hot enough to like really get in the ocean and enjoy yourself. But I had a really good time at that festival, and I'm really glad that I went. Got to see Philadelphia a little bit. I saw like Boys to Men Avenue in Philadelphia, and I went past the Rocky statue at the art museum there in Philadelphia. So it was kind of neat to see a part of the country that I've never been to before. And I was standing in line at a coffee shop, and I was talking to my girlfriend, and we were talking about Jeff Rosenstock because Jeff Rosenstock was playing, and Jeff Rosenstock's set was incredible, by the way. And Jeff Rosenstock walked into the coffee shop as we were talking about him. It was absolutely hilarious. Where I was like, oh yeah, I'm really excited to see Jeff Rosenstock in a few hours. And like 10 seconds after I said Jeff Rosenstock's name, he walked through the door as if I had like summoned him or something like that. So, it was a really good time. The drive back was a haul. It was Memorial Day weekend. So it was a really wonderful trip. So I'm glad that you and I have both had these really nice times since we last got to hang out. That's so cool.
It was great. I actually tried to see if anyone from that listens to the pod was at that fest in Detroit, but I don't think there's any crossover between those crowds.
Yeah. So anyway, do you have any good plans this summer coming up besides the Tied Down Fest?
I'm gonna do a lot of work around the house. I got next week for all the wrestling fans out there, we got Forbidden Door happening the 25th this Sunday, which is going to be absolutely insane. And then we got two AEW shows in Hamilton next week, which I'm super jazzed about because, coming to Hamilton is a little bit of a big deal. Like we don't get a ton of stuff here.
Yeah.
It always goes to Toronto, but now that we're getting like these, two large events happening here in Hamilton, looking forward to that. And then as far as shows, I don't have any other shows booked all summer. I do want to go see D Block play in July in Toronto because they were awesome at Tied Down. And if anyone wants some fun, Hate56 posted video online. D Block had the Little Caesars mascot on stage dancing with them at Tied Down, and it was awesome.
Yeah.
But other than that, the only other show I have booked a ticket for this summer is Wasp.
Nice. I am going to see Metallica in Montreal in August. Jimmy Eat World and Manchester Orchestra here in Buffalo on the Lake Erie waterfront. And going to see the first Better Lovers, the new Dillinger Escape Plan, Every Time I Die band that has formed. I'm going to see their very first show in a couple of weeks here in Buffalo. So I'm really excited about the really good music coming up in the next couple of months. So yeah. Woo.
Actually, I meant to ask you, Buried Alive is doing a free show at the Rec Room July 23rd. I'll probably come in for that.
I mean, it's going to be completely overpacked. I mean, getting in is going to be a huge gamble. So Rec Room is like the tiniest place in town, pretty much, besides Mohawk Place.
That's where we saw the Snapcase book release show, right?
Yep. And it's tiny and long and narrow, and it's really rough for anybody that for shows that might actually be full. It gets really, really miserably crowded in there. But so anyway, definitely consider coming for that. But there's a huge, huge chance that you won't actually get in because it will be around the block full. So I don't know. I guess turning back to podcast business, we've got this interesting selection of tunes here today that we'll have a chat about. And I have a guest that got in touch with me whenever I put out a call recently for covers of the songs that we had not covered yet. And a person from Winnipeg named Paul Hodgert, who is an audio engineer in Winnipeg, he did the Leg Hold Trap cover on the How to Clean Everything 30th anniversary episode that we did. And he knocked out two more covers for this episode on Fine Day and War is Peace. He did both versions. He recorded identical music and then did two vocals, and then he did both versions. So I'm really excited about the covers from Paul, and I interviewed him about his process for making them. So we've got some really good stuff coming up on this episode today.
That's awesome. I wonder if Paul knows Taylor in Winnipeg. I wonder if they know each other. Wouldn't that
I
be
don't
crazy?
know. Yeah. Well, interestingly, Paul has a local connection to the neighborhood, River Heights, which is discussed in the song Fine Day. So we've got like a person who has a personal connection and context for this particular song. And I was really excited about that, because anytime you get somebody from Winnipeg on who is a fan of Propagandy, it just kind of elevates the entire mood of the episode, because the content for people in Winnipeg is a little different. It hits a little different because so many songs of Propagandies are including local details in Winnipeg. And it just kind of really elevates the entire thing for me whenever someone from Winnipeg comes on the show, you know?
I feel like every time we have someone on from Winnipeg, it's like a special little treat for us.
Yeah, I agree. I will agree. So anyway, we're gonna go hear these two covers from Paul, and then we're gonna hear Paul's interview, and then we will be back after that. What do you think? You ready to hear these?
I can't wait.
Fine day in River Heights. Fine day for your skateboards and bikes, yeah. Fine day in your cute little world. Fine day for tough boys and submissive girls. Fine day in River Heights. A fine day to be blind. Fine day in River Heights. A fine day to see that the government's got the drop on you. Watching everything that you do. But you tell yourself you're exempt from their stare. 'Cause rules are rules and the system's fair and square. But with wired phones and two-way mirrors, they've been watching you for 20-some years. Oh yeah. But you don't even care. Got your health, got your hair. You got a skateboard and a jag. All these tokens will fucking pay. They regulate your idleness. You agglutinate and acquiesce. This whole goddamn world's a fucking mess. But it's a fine day in River Heights. Fine day for your skateboards and bikes, yeah. Fine day in your cute fucking world. Fine day for tough boys and submissive girls. Fine day in River Heights. A fine my state troopers. 'Cause he don't speak for oil tycoons and bankers. Oh yeah, whose pursuit of happiness and liberty demands a rhetoric of fear to be the litmus test for viable heirs to the phony drug wars, the trumped up rogue states, the permanence of a war economy. I feel less hopeful and less human as I'm reduced to nothing more than cheering on embassy bombings as the liars pave their way through 4 more years of war is peace, ignorance is strength, and slavery's freedom. 4 more, may all your interventions be humanitarian. 4 more years of pay-to-play politics, power, and influence. 4 more years of legalized bribery, serve corporate interests.
Paul Hodgert, welcome to Unscripted Moments, a podcast about propaganda.
I'm totally stoked to be here, man.
Paul, it is awesome to have you here. And before we get into this, I want everybody to know that you have been on the podcast before, but only in musical form when you did an amazing rendition of Leg Hold Trap for the 30th anniversary edition of How to Clean Everything that we recently did, where I said that your name was Paul Stodgert, which was it's immortalized forever in the podcast. But I wanted to make sure that people go back and hear that, because that cover is absolutely wonderful. So thank you for contributing to the podcast before, and then doing more covers for this episode, and just being a part of the story. It really means a lot.
Oh, hey, thank you so much. I really appreciate the kind words. It's a lot of fun. I love this band, so anything I can do,
Yeah, I love it. Well, Paul, why don't you spend a moment and introduce yourself a little bit to the listeners out there so they know a little bit about who you are and what you do?
Sure. Well, like I said, my name's Paul Hodgert. I am from Winnipeg. Spent the first 30 years of my life there. And now I live just outside Winnipeg on like the corner of a farm, which is pretty awesome. And I do work in media and content creation, podcast editing, video editing, that sort of thing. And I work as an audio engineer on occasion for bands and stuff, record producer, things like that. And I spent a good decade as a banker before I got into this. So it's been a delightful switch.
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine, going out of something like that, banking into, following something that you actually get intrinsic motivation from. I bet that was a very healthy switch for you as well.
Oh yeah, big time, especially because I went into banking after spending years playing in punk bands and putting out records and stuff. So it was a weird, like, nosebleed of a shift there.
Who are some of your bands? Would people up in Winnipeg in that surrounding region know a little bit about your music at all?
Probably not, but I was in a band called The Armada for about 4 years in the early 2000s, a band called The Public, a short time in a band called Carpe Diem, which is not the same Carpe Diem that was around in the 90s. This one was in the 2000s. It was in a band called Marginal, played at North by Northeast once, and I was in a hardcore band called Burn Your World for about a cup of coffee, and that's about it.
Wonderful. Well, Paul, I got you on here to chat about propaganda. Tell me a little bit about your propaganda journey. How did they come to be a part of your life as a fan of music in general?
Well, they've sort of always been around in my life. Because I grew up in a part of Winnipeg called Riverview, which is in an area of South Osborne. And it was just sort of, we always knew they were around. And again, before I go into any detail, I just need to quickly say I'm a bit of an unreliable narrator.
That's fine.
For a lot of these things, because a handful of years ago, I had a brain infection and it's kind of messed up some of my memories. So I might be conflating things or getting details wrong. So just a heads up there, if anybody's coming in at coming at me at Twitter saying that didn't happen. Well, I very well might be it didn't. So I remember when I was really young, I started playing guitar when I was about 11, and there was a music shop at the corner of Morley and Osborne called Unplugged on Osborne, and they had jam spaces in the basement. And one day I went there with a friend of mine to get some new guitar strings, and they were all out. And the owner, who his son went to school with me, so I was friends with him and jammed with him occasionally. He said, "Hold on a second," and he ran into the back, and he came back with 2 packs of strings. Says, "All right, I stole these from Propagandy's jam space, so you can just have these ones." I was like, "Oh, okay." So like they've just always been in the ether around my life. And I remember hearing people talking about this band, they have a song that they sing "fuck religion" over and over again.
Yeah.
Like, okay, whatever.
Yeah.
And and then I got really into them between Less Talk More Rock and Quantity is Job One.
Nice.
Actually, the first LP I ever bought was a first pressing of Less Talk More Rock, which I still have.
Nice.
It's in horrible shape because I played the crap out of it. But right then I was like, "Oh, I'm sold. This is the thing for me."
Yeah. Nice. So, we were just talking about, you mentioned that you grew up in Winnipeg, and there is a song on that exact compilation that where Quantity is Job Number One that we were just talking about called "Fine Day."
Yep.
Which references and has a personal connection to your own life. Tell me a little bit about your personal connection with the song "Fine Day" by Propaganda.
Yeah. Well, I actually went to elementary school from like kindergarten to I'll call it grade 2, although I'm sure you'd call it second grade.
Sure.
I'm at a school called Montrose, which was in River Heights. So all my friends were in River Heights. And then my sister went to Calvin High School, which is where John Kay went, I believe. And Neil Young went there too, actually. Yeah. As did my grandfather. So it's been around for a while. So like I know that area super well. And the area I grew up in, Riverview, is really close by. And I would sort of describe Riverview as River Heights if it liked to think it was more bohemian, but in reality it was still just a middle and upper middle class neighborhood.
Yeah. Nice. What is the area of River Heights like? Like, how would you describe that to people who have only ever heard this song, but have never been to Winnipeg, never been to River Heights? Kind of like, what's this like for people around the world listening who know this song, but not the place?
Yeah, well, it's an older neighborhood, big houses, big trees lining all the streets, sort of like a canopy over it, sort of middle to upper middle class, little bougie in some locations. And it's a big area that is sort of broken up into smaller sections. Like there's part of it that's like Tuxedo and Wellington, which is, bigger houses, richer people. And then there's Crescentwood, which I'm not sure is officially part of River Heights, but it's right up next to it and they share a community club. And it's a little bit more middle class instead of upper middle, but it's sort of from the outside. If you're a guy like Chris, who had never, I believe in the liner notes to Quantity, he says he didn't actually know where River Heights was. If you're somebody who has never actually been there or know it, you'd assume that it was sort of like the rich fancy pants area, which it is in some areas, but not in others. So it's kind of diverse, but still pretty solidly middle class.
What is the richest fancy pants part of Winnipeg? I'm curious.
That would be parts of Tuxedo, either down Wellington Crescent or Park Avenue.
Yeah, here in Buffalo, we have Crescent as well, and that's a rich area in a neighborhood called Parkside. It's funny how the word crescent seems to be associated with wealthy areas in Canada, but also in where I am here in Buffalo as well.
Yeah, I guess it just sort of feels like hoity-toity, like, oh, I'm not on a street, I'm on a crescent.
I'm on the crescent. Okay, so tell me about your thoughts about the song Fine Day. I'm curious about how you feel about the song in general, from the original version on the double 7-inch, from the compilation. Tell me what your thoughts on this one.
Well, when I first heard it on the compilation on Quantity, I loved it because it's like, I know where that is. I played for a football team in that area. I know that place. And then sort of looking at it, it's like, oh yeah, it's totally a bunch of skids in 91 trying to write a song about, an area that they thought was, fancy pants. And I mean, this, and it's very much young people writing a song to try to make a point, and I kind of love that about it. Like, I love the early grittier propaganda stuff. Like, that's, I mean, I love it all, but that's sort of my wheelhouse because that's when I got into it.
Yeah,
and I really like that the first chord change is going from a major to a seventh, which is a very propaganda thing to do. Like, they do a similar thing in Stick the Flag. And like, it's sort of an early example of Chris using different chord types instead of just majors and minors. Because if you go through their catalog, he uses a lot of sevenths and minor and major sevenths and stuff like that. So I think it's a really interesting, like, early indicator of where they're going to go for their skate punk era. But it's not exactly the most in-depth or like thought out song. It's clearly, oh crap, I got to write something. Fuck River Heights, man. Like, that gives me that vibe. But again, I love that. Like, that's, I love the sort of youthful exuberance of the track. So one thing I did notice, and I actually debated doing this on the versions I submitted was over like the outro, is the chords to Fine Day and War is Peace are almost the same as the chords to Refusing to Be a Man. So if you play those over top of each other, like, if you can play Fine Day and sing Refusing to Be a Man over top. And I debated doing that, but it was like, you know what? That's a hat on a hat. I'm already doing a double weird cover. I don't need to throw a third thing on top of it. But I thought that was pretty interesting too. They're not exactly the same, but they're pretty much the same. They're different voicings and like chord types, but the root notes of them are pretty much the same.
That's so interesting. I wonder if that one served as a blueprint for the other. Like, I wonder if the speed just kind of changed and something clicked for Chris in those moments. I wonder if there's any connection there. I always theorize these things, and then if he ever replies directly, he's like, "No, total coincidence."
Yeah, so that sounds like Chris.
It's really funny, but thanks for that observation. That's really cool. I love this one as well. And honestly, I feel like this song would have been a strong addition to How to Clean Everything. I feel like this could have easily gone on their first full length and added something to the record in general, because it's got stuff that, it paints this picture of this like utopian society and this like wonderful area to grow up, but then it totally flips it on you and makes it takes this really beautiful thing and then turns it into like this subversive thing that people who are in power are using their power in ways that are, going against people's actual freedoms while giving us the illusion that we're actually free. It's got a lot of lessons within the lyrics. Tell me a little bit about some of your thoughts on the lyrics that are going on here and how you read it and what you take away from the major meaning of the song.
Let me just quickly pull them up so I can make sure I know what I'm referencing. First of all, I just want to say that the lyrics that are on all of the sheets are missing.
Yeah.
So a verse, and I had no idea what they were saying. So I had to really just sort of guess, but like, excuse me. I think that the message is true. The whole, like, people thinking that because of their sort of wealth and status that they are sort of exempt from the stare of the government and all of that, but not understanding that we're still in a bit of a surveillance state. That's true, but it just, the way they're presenting it feels really delightfully juvenile, and it sort of takes away from the message when it's just like, man, the whole world's a fucking mess, man. Like, it's got that sort of a vibe. Again, I love that about it, but I will say that sort of undercuts their message a little bit, which again, that's kind of a feature of like young bratty punk rock. They often, messages get undercut, and Chris's lyrics and Todd's lyrics too got so much better at this really quickly, like going into How to Clean Everything and Less Talk. Like, they really figured a bunch of stuff out on how to present their ideas better. But I mean, it's the sort of thing where I sort of think about it like, yeah, they're right, but it sort of makes me feel like why am like the way they're presenting it makes me sort of say, why would I care?
Yeah. Yeah. Cause it's like everybody in the depiction here, Fine Day in River Heights, everybody's living in their cute little world, but then it describes what is actually going on. But everybody's like, well, I'm comfortable. I've got this fancy house. I've got like this wonderful head of hair. I've got money in the bank. And so I'm just going to go ahead and give the government surveillance programs a pass because it means that I can keep having these like creature comforts. And so it's kind of like when the whole like NSA revelations in the US came out like 9 or 10 years ago at this point, and everybody was like in an uproar for about a month, but then things just kind of went back to normal and everybody was like, oh, well, I guess that's just going to be the way it is now. And 10 years later, I mean, here we still are, so it's kind of like you have these things get exposed and these realities get exposed, but as long as everybody gets to keep living in their comfy little houses, that we'll just give it a pass and just kind of overlook it and not rise up in mass and protest, because that's a lot of work and my life is actually super easy.
Yeah, it's a big symptom of privilege. Like I grew up in that cute little world. I didn't have a Jag, which is what I think he's saying. But I had a skateboard and I grew up in relative affluence. So it's the sort of thing where it didn't affect me. So why would I care? Now, I mean, I care very much now that, I'm older and smarter and figured a lot of things out, but it's a symptom of privilege. I grew up in a very privileged environment. I still exist in incredible privilege. I'm a white cis male heterosexual, like middle class guy. I am the peak of privilege.
Yeah.
And it's sort of, I feel like it's our job in these privileged positions to sort of say, guys, let's actually pay attention to these things. Excuse me, sorry. And like use our position of privilege to point these things out for those who don't have that voice, which is, you could argue is what the song is doing as well.
Yeah, I wonder if whenever I get into this thing with some research a little bit more, if I'm going to find out exactly what he's talking about, because it says they've been watching you for 20 some years. This song comes out in like they're making like 1990 or so. So, he's referring to programs that have existed, if we're going like literally within the lyrics, since the early 70s. So I'm wondering if he has like a particular thing in mind or a particular program that he's referring to with regards to this. But that's just, there's a lot in the song too,
Yeah, like I'm not familiar with like the history of CSIS, which is sort of like the Canadian CIA type of thing. Like I don't know if we have programs like spying programs like the NSA and the CIA have had in the States. I'm sure we have. I have no reason to doubt it.
Yeah.
But I don't know any of that history because we don't talk about it as much in Canada the same way.
Yeah. Well,
I guess we don't have the same power that that America has to do those types of things.
Yeah, I had a family member who was very high up in the Pentagon. He worked in several presidential administrations, and whenever I was a kid, I would be like, "What's it like working in the Pentagon? And what happens like when the things we can't see?" And like, you don't want to know, kid. And so it's really funny, like these like ominous things that this family member who has since passed away quite a few years ago at this point, but the things that he alluded to that were going on were things that he's like, you don't even want to know. Just like, don't even ask questions like that, because if you get into it, it's going to be far too insane for you to really even comprehend. Because I was like 8, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. But that is exactly why you should ask questions.
Yeah, I guess he didn't want to.
Exactly why.
I guess he didn't want me to ruin my own life when I was 8. He's like, you have plenty of years to ruin your own life. Ask again in 20 years and I'll tell you then. I love this line too, where it's like they regulate your idleness, because if you think about all of our day-to-day lives, like I oftentimes think about the things that I subscribe to on my TV behind me here, like HBO Max, Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu, Disney, Peak. There's all these like services that are just kind of fed to us for these like affordable, low prices of $7.99 a month kind of thing. And I love this regulate your idleness thing, because it feels like it's one of those things where it's like, oh, tomorrow I'll care more, but today I'm just so exhausted. So I've got all these things that will appease me in this like, backlit box on my coffee table here, that will just kind of help me rest and recover so that maybe tomorrow I can care a little bit more about some of the injustices in the world. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, and then of course you agglutinate and acquiesce.
Yeah, I love that
your,
line.
idleness has been so regulated.
I love the agglutinate line because I found these lyrics on genius.com and you were right. There was something missing because I was like listening over and over and they're not published in full online. There's a part missing, but I love that in parentheses on the Genius edition, it says, get a load of this next line. You agglutinate and acquiesce. And so I can only presume that at one point, Chris had the lyrics published on Propagandy's website and he annotated that get a load of this next line part and then maybe remove them because they don't have any lyrics published for this record online.
I believe that is what's written in the liner notes of Quantity. Not like
Got it.
I have the insert from the Quality 7-inch right here. But I think it's in there along with him saying he didn't even know where River Heights was when he wrote it.
Let me see here. Oh, yeah, but it does say it. I got the CD booklet here for Quantity, and it says, get a load of this next one. And then at the very end, it says Whammy Bar Mayhem.
Mayhem, yeah.
Yeah, the outro is really great for a guitar. I mean, what did you think about the guitar for this one?
I thought the guitar was so much fun. Like the ending is like, it's kind of ridiculous, but in that wonderful, goofy way. I don't actually have any guitars with a whammy bar, and obviously I was using nylon strings, so that really wasn't a real option.
Yeah.
But I also appreciate when the re-recording, when they redid it, they did it with like what sounds like a detuned piano of some kind, which I thought was an interesting choice. I debated overdubbing a piano part on the one I did, but then I was like, you know what? I just want to go have a rest. I really want to do some of that, have some of that regulated idleness, to just take a rest after I was done, so I didn't bother.
Your efficiency in creating these covers is like quite astounding, by the way. You came out with the Leg Hold Trap cover, the Fine Day cover, the War is Peace cover, like really quickly. I've never worked with somebody on the podcast who has been easier about getting covers from. Like you just knock them out and send me the Dropbox file. It's amazing. So I do want to hear the story of your cover creation for Fine Day, and we'll talk about War is Peace here in just a little bit, but tell me about your creation process for the music for these songs. I know that the music is the same, so you can just talk about the musical adaptation process, but then I want to know about your creation process for the cover.
Well, so I sort of came at it thinking, what is a way where I can just do something completely different, and what can I do that's really easy?
Yeah.
Like, I recently got laid off from a job where I had all of my like audio and video equipment set up in a different room in my house instead of in my unfinished basement where it usually is. And I haven't set it all back up yet. So I was like, what can I do where I don't have to go set all that up and I can just throw a laptop down? So I'm not like miking drums or something. And I just figured in this case, since the last one I did sort of a John K. Gifts type of vibe with the electric guitar with the sort of off-time picking, finger picking. I figured let's try something completely different. Pulled out a nylon string guitar and thought, what can I make this work? And my initial thought was, I'm going to try to do like an Iron and Wine thing. I'm not like a huge Iron and Wine guy by any stretch. I don't think I could even name a song, but I know their vibe. But then when I got to doing it, I realized, oh, I don't really sing like that guy. So I'm not really going to be able to get a good sort of like hushed, weird lo-fi whisper. So I just kept the nylon strings thing and decided to use just a normal voice. And then I double tracked the vocals because these songs are super wordy, both of them. And double tracking the vocals and panning them hard left and right sort of made the sort of wordiness be more of like an aesthetic choice. Because if I hadn't done that, it would sound like I'm just like talking right into the center of your head for an extended period of time, which is never comfortable. So I just doubled them up.
Awesome. So are the two versions that you did, the Fine Day version and the War is Peace version, is the music is identical, correct?
Identical. Yeah. I just overdubbed more vocals and I did all this in the room I'm sitting in now, like my living room, just at my coffee table.
Amazing. Okay. So I love the covers. And whenever you told me originally in a text message that you were going to do the Iron and Wine version, I was thinking about those really early Iron and Wine records where he's super quiet, like almost whispering. And I was like really intrigued by that. So I really do love that you went with the nylon thing. But like, I totally get why you didn't do that, because that is such a specific approach that guy, Sam Beam in Iron and Wine, has on those early records with the whispering. I was like,
and it's too wordy to whisper.
Hard.
It's just too wordy. Nothing would be comprehensible.
Did you demo any of the whispered versions? Did you try that out?
I just sort of, after I said that, I started thinking, and I do music in a weird way. I don't pick up an instrument. I spent years doing like music theory lessons and stuff like that. So I just sort of play it and all the parts in my head, and then usually when the first time I try it on an instrument is when I'm recording it or showing it to other musicians or something. So after sort of playing it in my head, I was like, oh no, this isn't going to work. Like just going through it like the government has got a drop on you is like, that's not going to work. It's going to be too hard to figure out. So I figured I need to use a bigger voice, and my voice is already weirdly high when I sing, so I figured that's close enough to get sort of the twee vibe.
Yeah, I love it. All right. So let's chat about War is Peace for a little bit. This is such a great song. I absolutely love this. So this originally appeared on the Fat Music Volume 5 compilation, which was recently reissued on vinyl.
I saw that, yeah. Like 2 or 3 days ago.
Dude, I bought one. You might actually be able to see it. It's right there.
Oh, nice.
In my back room. I actually have it pulled off the shelf at the moment, sitting on the floor. And so I loved this compilation when it came out. There's a strung out song on there called Novocaine that I am absolutely obsessed with as well. And when I realized that this release is the only way to physically listen to this song by the band, and since I'm trying to be sort of a collection completist for their recorded output, I was like, well, I have to buy this reissue on vinyl. So I justified it as like, that's the only way I can get that Propaganda song.
It's true.
And so I got it. So I have the brand new pressing of Fat Music Volume 5. So we got the song War is Peace, Slavery is Freedom, May All Your Interventions Be Humanitarian. And I love that in 2001, when Propaganda was on tour with Avail, they had the name of the tour was the Humanitarian Intervention Tour. So we have
Nice.
a reference to that tour's name in this song title, which is super cool as well. And I'm wondering if you can tell me a little bit about your thoughts on the Propaganda version of War is Peace.
Okay, well, I love it. I loved when I first got that comp. It was towards sort of the end of my like fat wreck obsessiveness, like, that most people of my age go through. Well, not most people who like punk music of my age go through.
Guilty.
But I loved it because immediately I was like, oh, this is Fine Day. Oh, that's awesome. Listening through it now, sort of looking back on it, as much as I love it, it's kind of lazy. It feels like a real sort of slapped off. We need a song for this comp. Mike's bugging us. Let's get something. We weren't on Rock Against Bush.
Yeah.
For reasons that you've probably gone over, I would imagine.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So let's get something on there that's sort of making our Rock Against Bush point that doesn't really matter who wins. It's all the same. It's Tweedledum or Tweedledee.
Yeah.
But I just feel like, again, it's not badly done by any stretch, but it sort of feels like, let's throw in some Orwell lyrics and let's just put in, I'm just pulling up the words here, take a look at them.
Yeah. The song is really fascinating to me. In the liner notes for that LP over there, I read the lyrics or the liner notes for this one, and I posted on Instagram so people can go look at it if they've never read it. But it says something along the lines of made in 1990, regrettably revisited in 2000 or something like that. So there's like they even themselves have been like, yeah, this was just kind of something we had to get done.
Yeah, and like you can tell the date on it because they reference the presidential debates of 2000 when Nader was forcibly removed from participating. That's right in there. So yeah, it feels sort of slapped off. But again, slapped off isn't always a bad thing. The song slaps. Like, yeah, it does. A ton of fun. And again, they're not wrong. It's just, it doesn't feel like it's been cooking as long as some of the other stuff, even though I guess theoretically it's been cooking for a decade. But
yeah, well,
lyrically, it doesn't feel like it's been cooking quite as long.
And what's so fun about the performance of this one is it has the vibe of very early Propaganda. So like by this time we're in like the Today's Empires era Propaganda, so there's a throwback to a sound that no longer really exists for the band in their current form. So it's kind of cool to see that revisiting occur, because it's like, the band being who they became, revisiting something from a long time ago is really interesting, because there's no way to like totally redo and recapture those earlier moments. But it's just kind of an interesting revisiting with where the band went to revisit their old sound.
Yeah, for sure. And that's part of what makes it so fun, is hearing what they were like then, but with, good fidelity, and with Todd playing bass, and like just having that sort of more in your face vibe of the better recordings in the later era.
Yeah. So I'd love to know your thoughts on the lyrics. You referred to the Orwell ministry of truth, ministry of peace, ministry of love, and ministry of plenty with, the slogans of the party: war is peace, freedom is slavery, and ignorance is strength, from 1984. Tell me your thoughts on the lyrics a little bit more.
Okay, yeah. Well, again, it feels a little undercooked, but again, that's not always a bad thing. I mean, we're just going straight through a whole bunch of Orwell lines, and then basically saying all of them are the same. They're all owned by the ultra rich and oil tycoons and bankers. But the thing that I really appreciate is towards the end, when he gets to the "I feel less hopeful and less human, as I'm reduced to nothing more than cheering on embassy bombings as the liars pave their way through 4 more years." I really like that, because it's sort of making the personal of like, I'm so sick of this. Like, what is there that I can do other than cheer on terror? Like, what's left for me to do when the entire system is set up to just continually self-perpetuate with Tweedledum or Tweedledee speaking for oil tycoons and bankers. Like, I appreciate that's the piece that sort of takes it from being like, oh yeah, all the parties are the same. We all kind of know this. It's they're all neoliberal economic people, but then throwing that in sort of gives it that nice personal touch. And I think the best Propaganda has a personal touch to it, like their position in it, which just sort of goes to the whole notion that all art is about the artist, whether it's literal or figurative. And that's what I think sort of elevates this above just a dashed off quickie that they had to get into Fat Mike.
Yeah, man, I love that. That's my favorite line too. And did you make the connection or theorize that this line is the original version of what went on to become Name and Address Withheld from Potemkin? Because there's a line in that song: "I'm feeling less hopeful and so much less human, as my days are reduced to little more than settling for revenge." So like this line reappears on Potemkin City Limits.
Yeah, 5 years later.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally awesome. And I love
Did not click to me at all. I did not even notice that.
Well, it's like there's a really good reason for it, man. I feel like that line is so powerful, and I'm honestly really glad that Chris sort of recycled the line from this song, which you mentioned is a little undercooked, a little bit, rehashed, a little bit forced, and a little bit, with the very, very clear Orwell references and everything. The band can definitely do better. And I think that, and so like, I love this song like a ton, like I really love it, but everything you're saying is resonating with me as well. Cause I'm always like, what can I say that like is sort of a critique about this song? And I think you really captured some of my sentiments about it as well. So I'm honestly really glad that some of the strongest lyrics from the song get revisited and reused in another song that's a little more developed a couple of years down the road.
Yeah. And I've done that myself. One time unknowingly with 2 songs on the same record, I reused a line without even realizing it, with one song that was written way before the other. It happens, but if it's a good line, you want to use it. And in this case, I see him wanting to reuse that idea because, I mean, while a lot of people are going to hear the comp track, it clearly wasn't meant to be a serious, well, I mean, not serious, but it wasn't meant to be a part of their official canon. So let's put it in context in a better song, a more well thought out song in a more official release capacity. I think it was a great, and also it shows 5 years later, he felt the same.
Yeah.
And we all, I'm sure he feels some version of that today. Like, it's not something that's gone away.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love the transition back in from the cheering on embassy bombings as the liars pave their way through 4 more years. I love it how it's got the bookended 4 more years chants almost. It feels like the chant at a political rally. And so I love the way he transitions back from that fast middle section back into the to the slower outro. I just think that that's really a cool little transition from the bleak middle part to the more like sloganeering chanty part.
And it's an uncommon thing for Chris's writing. Chris writes in a way that is known as through composed, where it's not verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, outro. Everything sort of builds and continues on. Not every time, but the majority of it. So for them to go so explicitly back to here is the chorus again is not common. So it's really sort of leads to that through composed sort of nature of it, that it's not just a repeat of it, it's completely tied into the full narrative. And again, the whole thing is about how everything cycles over and over again. So it kind of makes sense to have the song cycle over and over again, because the song could just continue forever.
Yeah.
Because it all just sort of loops around again. And I think I don't know if it was an intentional metaphor, but that could be a metaphor for what the message of the song is to begin with.
Yeah. You basically did a 2-for-1 cover. Same music, 2 different sets of lyrics entirely. Which one do you like more? Which finished version are you like, hey, I like this one a little more than the other one?
I like my War is Peace more because it's more in my range. The melodies are a little bit different between the two. And in the verses, like I said, I've got a pretty high voice. So when it gets to the part of Fine Day, when it's doing the like but you tell yourself that you're exempt from their stare, that's really low for me because I'm a gigantic dude with a high voice. So, and it's also everything, the space is filled out more. There aren't like giant gaps between stuff. Like at the very end of in Fine Day, at the very end when it gets to the you got a skateboard and a jag, that section, there's a huge gap before it gets to a line that I couldn't actually make out the words to, but it sounds like all these tokens who will fucking pay.
Mm-hmm.
There's a huge gap there that just feels so uncomfortable because I feel like I should have been singing something, but he doesn't. Also, I think he said all you tokens who will fucking pay, but the way that my autocorrect did it, it was written on my notes and I ended up singing it because I thought it was funny, is all you Tolkiens who will fucking pay. Yeah. Like, I was like, yeah, you know what? I don't know what the words are anyway. Let's just use Tolkien because that's funny.
I love that. That's a nice little, Easter egg for the very paying attention listener. Awesome. Well, I love how both these songs are almost like thematically about the same thing as well. Like the meaning of the song really isn't that different between the first two. If you think about like what the purpose of the ministry of truth is in 1984, and then what he's talking about with the wired phones and two-way mirrors and Fine Day, the two songs have a lot of similarity with the content, even though they're completely different lyrically. Did you were you thinking about that too?
You know, that I not until you said it, when I was doing them, I wasn't really thinking a ton about the content. I was more thinking about the technical aspects and trying to remember the two different melodies, because it's really awkward to sing two different melodies on the same recording when they're not harmonies or counter melodies, because they're really similar, but not quite. So I didn't think too much about it at the time. But yeah, it's very much about how the sort of systems are built up to keep us where we are no matter what.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Go through your little life, person, and things are happening beyond what you can see. And just don't really worry about it. Just get by from day to day.
And here's your illusion of choice between these two nearly identical candidates, between Kang and Kodos from that Simpsons episode.
Yeah, I love it. Paul, have we were talking before we recorded that you've seen Propaganda live before. Do you have any major memories about seeing the band live that you felt like sharing? Because asking people about their live experience is one of my favorite questions.
Okay, so I was trying to figure out how many times I've seen them, and it's not countable because I think there's times I've seen them when I didn't know it was them, just by virtue of living here and just sort of like going to shows and seeing like outdoor things in community club parking lots and stuff like that. So I can't know. But my favorite memory is one that fortunately I have a video of it. I was at the Live from Occupied Territory show.
Nice.
And that was such a perfect set list. Like if you're going to do something from that era, that set list was just untouchable. Throwing in they do True on that one. They do Mutual Friend, which I love seeing live. And then ending with Hard Times, like the Cro-Mags cover, that was just an incredible amount of fun at that show. And it's at a bar that's now been torn down and they're building condos there.
Yeah, that seems
like we all love to see happen.
Yeah, that seems like every time I go to Toronto, it's like, cranes as far as the eye can see.
It's mind-boggling in Toronto, but we're getting a decent amount of that here too, because that was at the zoo. And actually the first punk show I ever played was when I was, how old was I? I was 12 years old. And I played in the basement of the zoo at a place called Aussie's, and that building's just gone now. And it's a real bummer. I mean, it was more of a metal bar than a punk bar, but still, we're just losing venues left and right. And it's like the Park Theater is like the only venue of that size left in Winnipeg, which I like the Park Theater. I used to go to movies there, but when it was like a functioning third run movie theater, but it's just a real bummer to see all those venues disappear. And, but I like that I have a DVD where I've not been able to spot myself in the crowd yet, but it's also shot so handy cam that it's not possible. In fact, actually, I was watching some of it with my son this morning before he hopped on the bus for school, and he kept trying to find me, but he absolutely could not.
Nice. I have my copy of that DVD as well, and every once in a while I put it in. I usually revert to watching it on YouTube because I don't have a DVD player currently set up, but I will never get rid of that hard copy. And I think that anybody who has never listened to that, the band you can download it off the band's Bandcamp, and they might even have DVDs of it that they can still sell you. I'm not really sure. Who knows?
But it's on YouTube in a bunch of clips, right? It's broken up into 8 parts or something.
Yeah, every time, and you can get it as MP3 downloads on their Bandcamp too. So whenever I have to sample that album on the podcast, I usually use the MP3 download from the Bandcamp, but you can definitely get it on YouTube and watch the whole thing because it's great. My favorite live part that I've ever seen from the band, my favorite commentary is whenever Chris yells at Jord, "Hurry up, dickweed!" I completely love that part, and it makes me laugh every time. So if I ever need to have a quick laugh, I watch that DVD, like where Chris yells at George for being too slow at the before a song starts.
Yeah, I actually have one other favorite live memory that I just remembered. So I mentioned at the top that I'm an unreliable narrator because I got really sick for a while. Before that, right after my son was born, he's 8 now. My wife got really sick when my son was about 2 months old and was in the hospital for about 5 weeks and almost died. And so I've got this new kid. I'm living in an apartment on Osborne. I'm just actually pretty much right across from the Park Theater. And everything's all stressed out, and eventually things get better. And then I get sick and I get better and all of that sort of thing. And Propagandy's playing at the Pyramid. And because life was so hectic, I did not have time to get tickets. All those shows sell out immediately anyway.
Yeah.
So I was just on Instagram or Twitter or something saying, "Hey, anybody have an extra ticket I can buy, whatever?" And Chris DM'd me to say, "Hey, ticket at the door. We're on your name. Go get it." So I got to go to the show, and I'm at the show, and it was amazing. It was after all of these really hard things where I almost died. My wife had almost died. We've got this new little baby. Everything is just so stressful and all that. And they're playing, and they start playing Without Love. And it gets to the part where the "Please Don't Leave Me."
Yeah.
That part. And it's I'm sitting here watching this awesome punk band or punk metal or progressive thrash, I guess would be the term they like. And I just started crying in the thing because it's oh, I have not had time to process any of this.
Yeah.
And it was just this wonderful emotional release from a band that is not known for their emotional release songs. And so there was just that moment. It was just oh, This is why I absolutely adore this band, why they're one of the most important bands in my life. And just so that's my other favorite memory, is finally getting this huge emotional relief and finally allowing myself to deal with what was like trauma, like just deal with some major life trauma. So that's my other favorite memory. It's a bit different than the first one of I was at Fun Show, but yes, that's my other favorite live memory.
That seems to encapsulate it kind of as well, like kind of what this band means to you, like the like as a whole, you know what I mean? I always ask people, what does this band mean to you? And I feel like you sort of just answered that as well.
Yeah. They mean so much to me on a personal level, on an intellectual level. Like, they exposed me to so many ideas from a very young age. Like, Let's Talk came out when 96, 95?
96, yeah.
I was born in 84, so I'm 12 years old hearing this stuff, and it's completely changing. Like, I was listening to mostly Christian punk at that point. So this is this huge, complete shift of ideas. And as I've grown older, the more and more I've absorbed of their ideas and other bands and other sources, that it's just completely shifted my worldview. And I know I'm not the only one. Everybody talks about that. But then also on the personal level, songs like Woe Is Me off of the Flag Burning.
Yeah.
I love that song because I've been in that exact position. And that's why I say the songs with that personal touch are the ones that always have that little extra to me. And that one has nothing political about it whatsoever.
Yeah.
But I've been in that position and asked those questions of the people in my life.
Yeah. And something about that Woe Is Me. We did Woe Is Me really early on in the podcast as well. And Beeve was actually the guest on that episode, which meant so much. Because like, Beeve, tell me some songs you want to talk about. And he chose Woe Is Me. And I'm like, amazing. So that was so cool that to get his thoughts on that particular song, because I couldn't believe that he picked that one.
Oh, well, this is my favorite of their releases.
Yeah.
I love the Flag Burning.
I love that cover. Like, I love that version too. You've got
the red and black. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. I had to get it on Discogs from a guy in Europe somewhere.
Yeah. What's the I Spy color side? Oh red. My gosh. That's so sweet. I've never seen one like that in person.
I was really stoked to get it because I was like, I need to own this. And then I found like the weirdest version.
Yeah.
Like, I'm totally getting the weird one. It cost way more than I should have paid for it.
Oh yeah, I mean the minimum
second most I've ever paid.
The minimum you're ever going to see that record for is like $50 plus shipping. That's
from
like
Europe for me. Yeah,
that's the minimum, right? Like in the US, I mean like $50 plus shipping. If you're in the US, that's the cheapest you'll ever get it. And everywhere else, you just kind of, I've seen them as high as like 200, 250 before.
Yeah, this was a while ago. I think all in with shipping was about $100, which is the second most I've ever paid. After a box set that of Bay Area 7 inches, because it's the only official release of Jawbreaker's Kiss the Bottle.
Ooh,
and I'm
nice.
a huge Jawbreaker guy.
Yeah.
So I paid more for that to get one side of 1 7-inch in a pack of 4, but that's 4 records. So of course that's going to be expensive. So this is the second most I've ever paid.
Amazing. Well, Paul, before we wrap up, I'm curious if you have any reflections and thoughts on your leg hold trap cover that you did on the 30th anniversary, How to Clean Everything as well. I'd love to get your take on doing that, which is a cover that Propaganda did from Toothpick Hercules, John and Conrad's and Steven's earlier band. Tell me your thoughts on that one as well.
Well, first, I debated opening it with me saying this is a Toothpick Hercules cover, and I'm here to butcher it to death, like on the quantity. But I was like, that's a little on the nose. That one I was just sort of going for the live solo version of Gifts that John, I'm not sure if he still does, but at least
my favorite version.
It's a great version. Yeah. I was like, so it's got sort of, for those who haven't heard it, it's sort of got a similar finger picking to Weaker Than's One Great City. So I was like, how can I wanted to make, it's a John song. Let's do something Johnish. And for that one, like I mentioned, my studio wasn't sort of set up, but I also couldn't find my iLock key to authorize Pro Tools. So I actually had to record that one using a free recording software I barely used called Reaper. And I did that one standing in my kitchen with a guitar plugged directly into my computer. And just sort of went like, it's got that do 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 So the bass plays goes down from the root note, which is a D, down to the third of the scale, which is an F sharp, but the chord itself is still a D. So I was like, that's something I can do with finger picking. So I just was like, oh, that'll be an easy thing to do and sort of get that rhythm. But it was really tough to keep a tempo because the sections are so different. So it sort of got a little bit awkward when it gets to the turnaround chorus. And I wish that you had sent me the toothpick version, because I would have added those lyrics and made some changes to the arrangement had I known there was another verse of words that were not on the propaganda version. But I mean, I'm happy with how it turned out. Again, that was about 45 minutes of just quickly dashing something off and sending it away. So
For how fast you are, your covers are wonderful. I got to tell you, it's really impressive.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, Paul, I'm super pumped by your 3 contributions to the podcast. The 2-for-1 Wars Peace Fine Day, split. It's almost like a mini digital split 7-inch kind of. Really pumped by your contributions, your energy, your stories, your connection to the local as well for the songs. That's really, really awesome as well. It kind of adds another layer of like personalized flair and touch to the show. I love talking to people in Winnipeg because you all have an on the ground resonance with the music in a way that most other people in the world don't. So I love getting the local take on it as well. And I'm wondering if you have any places that you would like to direct people's attention out there listening, if they're like interested in your work or anything like that you'd like to say, hey, this is what I'd like to promote, or anything like that.
I have nothing really coming up soon. I'm slowly working towards what'll be my first solo album that's going to come out next July on my 40th birthday. I figured I'll be 40 in July. It's about time I did a solo album.
Perfect.
So that'll be in a year, but I mean, obviously that's still a ways away, so there's not a whole lot to check out. But I'm at Paul Hodgert on any social media, and like on everything.
Amazing.
I managed to get that super common name.
Yeah.
Although maybe I should get at Paul Stodgert too.
That can be like your performance pseudonym. Oh my gosh, hilarious. Well, Paul, super pumped that you're here. Thank you so much for everything you've done for the show. It means a lot that you took the time to have this chat with me. Thank you so much for being here.
Hey, it was a ton of fun. I'd happily do it again.
Like Raiders, Boston state troopers. Casinos speak for old tycoons and bankers. Oh yeah, whose pursuit of happiness and liberty demands a rhetoric of fear to be the litmus test for viable heirs to the phony drug wars, the Trump approach states the permanence of a war economy. I feel less hopeful and less human as I'm reduced to nothing more than cheering on embassy bombings as the liars pave their way through 4 more years of war is peace, ignorance is strength, and slavery is freedom. 4 more may all your...
All right, so that was my chat with Paul Hodgert, audio engineer in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, and massive fan of Propaganda and locally relevant person to some of the song content within the song Fine Day. I hope you all enjoyed Paul's renditions of Fine Day and War is Peace. And so thank you so much to Paul again for contributing these excellent covers for Fine Day and War is Peace, but also for the cover on the 30th anniversary How to Clean Everything episode that we did in May of 2023. So definitely go check the show notes for the timestamp for Paul's leg hold trap cover, and go back and listen to that if you missed it, because it's buried super far into that 5-hour plus episode. So if you didn't make it all the way to leg hold trap, but you liked what Paul did for this episode, definitely go back and check out his episode of his contribution to the cover of leg hold trap on that How to Clean Everything episode, because it's super great. So Steve, we're going to chat now about this tune. What are your thoughts and, connections and, realizations or whatever about your history in relation to the song Fine Day? Tell me about you and this particular song.
So this song is it's kind of a hilarious situation for me, because when we had discussed doing the episode, I was like, Fine Day. And I was thinking, and I'm like, I knew it was off of Quantity, but as we've mentioned in previous episodes, my Quantity CD is literally stuck in my CD player and has been there for like 15 years. So and it doesn't play, it doesn't work. It just kind of shakes around and basically scratches up the CD inside there. So I actually hadn't heard this song in forever until I went on YouTube to listen to it. So we're getting like an almost fresh perspective of me hearing this song.
Wonderful. Well, when I started the podcast about 3 years ago at this point, I wasn't really familiar with so many of the super ultra deep cuts that the band has put out over the years. Like, as a listener of the band, like I really gravitate towards like the supporting cast, Failed States, Today's Empires, Potemkin, City Limits era of the band. So, some of this really old stuff with, questionable and old like audio quality, I just kind of let that stuff go. So I was like revisiting a lot of this stuff, like, Woe Is Me, Okay Everywhere. Like these are songs that I didn't really keep up with as a fan of the band who appreciates their later era stuff like a lot more than their early era stuff. So this was a big blind spot for me, this particular song. But I was looking back at the original spreadsheets that I made with the giant song title, where I put all the songs and then I put like possible guests in the spreadsheet. And Todd Kowalski first mentioned that he was interested in talking about Fine Day for the podcast whenever we first started it, because this is one of his personal favorite songs of the early era of the band. And Todd also said to me recently that he thinks that this song should have been on How to Clean Everything, which is fabulous, because I completely agree. Because whenever I often hypothesize about alternative track listings for How to Clean Everything to make it in what would be, in my view, a better record, this is one that I haven't really ever considered throwing on there. But now that Todd says that, it makes perfect sense to me that this would have been a really strong addition to How to Clean Everything, which is really cool. And it was also Todd's idea, mostly, I think, that this song get re-recorded in 2000 in the version that it became. So Todd told me, he's like, he wanted to play Fine Day as it was, and Chris thought that they needed to update the lyrics, but Todd likes the original lyrics a lot. So the band kind of tested this out, and Todd wanted to redo Fine Day as it was, and Chris wanted to do the updated lyrics. So that's why the new edition is not just a total recreation of the original 1990 version, because Chris insisted on redoing the lyrics while Todd wanted to do the song again. So, which is really cool, because Todd wasn't in the band when they did the original version, but this is one of Todd's favorite early era songs. So it's kind of neat that Todd was able to contribute to something that was one of his earlier favorite songs. And then that's why this new edition came to exist. So yeah, it's pretty sweet. But I was not really all that familiar with this tune whenever the podcast started. But I'm, doing a show like this, it helps you reconnect with stuff that you had long forgotten.
I love when bands repurpose like stuff and make it kind of new and fresh. I remember like Moneen did that they have an instrumental on, I think it's on Theory of Harmonial Value, or it could be on Smaller Chairs, one or the other. it was an instrumental song that they later just added lyrics to and released as a new song. And I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So redoing this like this, I'm all for it.
What do you think of do you have any thoughts on the original version's musical performance at all? Like what stood out to you while you were listening to it for the first time in years and years?
So I actually like the really rough around the edges recorded version probably better than the other one.
Interesting.
Well, I like it because I find I How to Clean Everything, I feel like his weight is too polished. Right. And for what they were doing around that time, I think the rough around the edges sound I like better with the How to Clean songs than I do the polished version of those songs, if that makes sense. So I actually really like the recording of Fine Day on Quantity.
Nice. I love that when they made the demo versions of the songs that went on to the How to Clean Everything 30th anniversary or the 20th anniversary reissue, you can go back and hear some of those like pre Donnell Cameron, pre West Beach Studios versions that they recorded in Winnipeg with Conrad. And those early versions are all so cool. So I love hearing these like almost like demo quality early recordings as well. Really, really cool. I also think that it's super funny that this song was listed in the liner notes of the Where Quality is Job Number 1 double 7-inch, but that it wasn't actually on that release, because that record is such a goofy, like inside joke between Todd at Recess Records and the band. So I love the fact that this one appeared on like the liner notes of a release that it doesn't even actually included on, because whenever I was preparing these notes, I was like, oh yeah, it's on the Quality double 7-inch, and it's totally not. It's just that it's like this like inside joke being listed inside the liner notes. Let's talk about the lyrics a little bit. We've got this sort of bookended approach to the song where it's got the idyllic scene, the scenario of the suburban cushy life, and then it's got the really bleak Big Brother-esque theme in the middle of the tune, and then it talks about the apathy of all of the people who are being spied on by the people who are elected to represent them. And then it goes back into the idyllic scene for the conclusion part of the song. Whenever you were reading through the lyrics, did you have any, thoughts about your own life, or did any thoughts like spring out about what this song means to you or connects to your life at all?
The opening line, Fine Day in River Heights, Fine Day for your skateboards and bikes, that whole line there, I think you have a similar kind of, it triggers something similar for you, but it definitely reminded me of like the neighborhood in which I grew up in Valois. And yeah, it just kind of brings back those memories of like, I don't know, I always just remember it as being like sunny and people outdoors and it being super friendly and extremely privileged.
Yeah, I grew up in a place called Fenton, Missouri, which I actually just visited for the first time in over a decade when I was in Missouri fairly recently. But my neighborhood was, a new construction neighborhood starting like 1981 through like 1985. The neighborhood was built. And I lived in a house that my parents had built. It was a brand new build. My house backed up to trees and a creek, and we had a huge yard, and there was always like roller hockey games going on in the street, where it's like the Wayne's World thing of car game on, is that kind of a thing where they're like you're moving the nets all the time, and just people riding their bikes all over the place. And it was a really exactly identical scene to what this song is describing in the first verse, right? There was, the tough guys, there were, the little girls. It was completely exactly like what this song is describing. And it's like, oh, right, that's not very special. That's like how it is in every single major city where you have these like pockets of totally insulated and able to ignore huge aspects of the realities that actually are problematic in the world itself. It's like these little pockets of insulated spots where you can like shut off your brain, shut off the news, and just pretend that so many of the problems in the world don't even exist. So that's exactly what my life was like as well.
We'll be referring to those as privilege pockets from now on.
I love that. We have a new phrase. We're coining it here and now, privilege pockets. So then the song takes a dark turn where they go into the fast part of the song. So we get to rocking real hard here. But then it's a fine day to see that the government's got the drop on you, watching everything that you do, but you tell yourself that you're exempt from their stare and that the rules are rules and the system's fair and squared, but with wired phones and two-way mirrors, they've been watching you for 20 some years. This one really jumps out at me because, as everybody knows, like 10 years ago, the United States' National Security Agency mass surveillance programs were brought to light in a very public way with a massive whistleblower case that everybody in the world heard about deeply at the time. And so I was looking to see what some of the details about this. But apparently right now in 2023, there is a massive fight allegedly coming to Congress in the United States about the NSA's mass surveillance programs. And there is a section of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which permits the U.S. government to engage in mass warrantless surveillance of Americans' international communications, including phone calls, texts, emails, social media messages, and web browsing. This is called Section 702 in the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act. And it is expiring at the end of this year, and people are saying that it is creating an opportunity to rein in the sprawling surveillance state. And by people are saying, I mean the ACLU are encouraging people to reach out to their representatives about these like insane mass surveillance programs that have been in existence for a long time here in the United States. And, there's programs like PRISM, which the NSA obtains communications like international messages and emails and internet calls from U.S. tech and social media companies like Facebook, Google, Apple, and Microsoft. And, the government is identifying non-U.S. person accounts it wishes to monitor and then orders the company to disclose all communications and data to and from those accounts, including communications with U.S. persons. So that's one of these, mass surveillance things. There's also something I was learning about called Upstream, where the NSA works with companies like AT&T and Verizon and intercepts and copies Americans' international internet communications in bulk as they flow into and out of the United States. And so the NSA searches for key terms like email addresses and phone numbers that are associated with its hundreds of thousands of foreign targets. And then communications are determined to be, from those targets. And they're retained in NSA databases for use and analysis. So there is so much in this topic that everybody out there can and should know about. But as the song says, it's, you've got your day-to-day life right outside your door every single day. And if you worry about these things, aren't you really just going to be making your own life worse if you're spending all your time thinking about something that you have absolutely no power at all to change? Shouldn't you really just kind of accept the way things are and just go back outside and appreciate the fact that it's a lovely late June summer day instead of worrying about these things? You know what I'm saying?
Oh, I know exactly what you're saying. I have kind of like an interesting perspective on this whole surveillance thing. So I want to say like 18 years ago, I did some consulting work for a popular social media company.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned pretty quickly that it was very common for people that worked at said social media company to read people's inboxes.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I just presume that that's entirely the case.
And like the reason they were doing it is because there was an actual like crime ring happening within the thing, and you had to like, read people's messages to see who was involved in the crime ring, obviously. But I was surprised to see how common practice it is to just log into someone's account and read their messages.
Yeah. I mean, I just assume that that's very normal, and that absolutely everything on your social media accounts, whatever you use, can just be accessed pretty much by anybody with the admin, powers within the main headquarters of these places that people work at and program for and troubleshoot for and do tech support for. I just presume that that's all instantly available to them if they have your username, and that's it. There's nothing really that can be done about it. It really, we've done some deep dives into social media. I think when we did the status update episode a long time ago, like I have found some stuff that was just completely ridiculous and insane. And, years later, here I am still using all those exact same platforms.
It's one of those things where you either play the game or you remove yourself from society. And it's unfortunate that those are the two options.
Yeah. Well, and so then it goes into this next line where it's like, but you don't even care. Got your health, got your hair, except for me. I don't have any hair. Got a skateboard and a Jag. I think it says Jag. I can't really hear what he's saying. And some of these lyrics are not published in the genius.com or in the quantity is job one liner notes. So this line, I guess Chris took it out on purpose when they made those liner notes, because this is not in the booklet, and I can't exactly make it out. But I think he's saying you got your Jag. It's like a Jaguar, like a car.
Yeah.
So it's exactly what happened in the aftermath, essentially, of the NSA's whistleblower disclosures about PRISM and the fact that we're all at the whims of the NSA on this stuff. And, 10 years later, after those revelations, we're still just going about our business. And the NSA or the ACLU is like, please reach out to your representative. This mass surveillance thing is expiring at the end of 2023. You have a say. And I'm like, do we? Do I really? Do I have any power to influence this whatsoever? But it's just, this song is just so funny, and that it describes what is happening and above our heads in these like mass surveillance organizations. And then it's like, but hey, at least I got my health, and I've got my toys that keep me appeased. And I love this next line too. They regulate your idleness, because at the end of a long day, I flip on Netflix Black Mirror or, HBO Righteous Gemstones, and I just zone out as well. So all of my idleness is totally regulated by an absolutely insane amount of choices online to help me zone out and, relax or whatever after a stressful day of work. But that's all completely by design to keep me there instead of, collaborating or cooperating with people in society to try to make things actually better. It's just like, you've had a long day. Why don't you just go ahead and pop on HBO, and maybe tomorrow you can do something useful to help the world. But today, just watch Righteous Gemstones for an hour. You deserve it. Does that make sense?
The show's not going to watch itself.
Exactly. I have things to do. I have shows to watch. It has to be done. So it's one of those things where we just get caught in this spiral of continuing to consume these shows and be like, oh yeah, I have these goals of like how to like help make society a better place. But man, I'm so tired today. Tomorrow I'll worry about that. Tonight I'm watching Righteous Gemstones.
Yeah. To be perfectly honest, I have no idea what that even is.
Oh, it's a great show. It's hilarious. It's a show with John Goodman about a super church pastor who there's a lot of in-family corruption and stuff like that below the surface. It's absolutely amazing. But then we've got these next lines. You agglutinate and acquiesce. This whole goddamn world's a fucking mess. And so I love the use of agglutinate, and it's just talking about our snacking tendencies. and how you just, you kick back with a box of, a takeout box of chicken wings or whatever, and sit back on your couch and watch HBO Max on your TV, and you just give up for the day, right? You are sitting there just consuming this food, and you are acquiescing to the fact that you have no power to, rein in the surveillance apparatuses that are above us all in our lives.
And the whole gluttonate, it really brings that whole term. When I think of that word, all I can think about is American fast food industry.
Oh,
and
yeah.
How just like it's even different to like the Canadian fast food industry. And like when we were in Detroit recently, the only thing open after the festival was White Castle. So we obviously get, the Impossible sliders or whatever. It's like a small soda there is literally like our extra large.
Wow.
It's insane.
Yeah.
You get a literal bucket of soda.
Yeah. Yeah. And what that does is it creates a society which is completely unhealthy, with no energy whatsoever to fight for a better world, because we have been just fed all of these things that we're completely addicted to. Our food is so addictive. The nutritional value in something like a flamin' hot Cheeto is designed chemically to keep you hooked and consuming these like hydrogenated foods. And so you get super out of shape. You have no nutrition, so you're completely exhausted. You've got an overwhelming amount of choice on your TV streaming apps, and you just kind of give up in the face of the overwhelmingly horrible aspects of society, such as having no guaranteed paid parental leave when children are born, no access to universal health care. Whenever you do have health care coverage and insurance, you are at the whims of being denied for certain claims by your insurers. It is like this endless spiral of bad things that are, could be changed, but won't be, because of what the song is talking about: our idleness, our gluttonation, our acquiescence, and the mess of the whole thing, which is so messy that in order to address it would take actual sustained effort. But what we do instead is we elect people who don't have any actual ideas for how to make society better. We elect people that appeal to our complete base worst instincts about how can we vilify tiny, powerless, small groups of people as being the real problem in society, which is just a massive distraction to keep us arguing and to prevent us from actually making society a better place. I don't know. It is absolutely mind-boggling. But hey, the sun's out and we're in River Heights, my lovely suburb. And so it's a giant mess. It really just makes me crazy to think about.
The other thing that I think about when I think of the term agglutinated, sorry about these tangents, but
I love it,
is these absolute clown show people that went down in this submarine.
Oh my gosh, I know. Oh man, 250 grand a person to get catastrophically imploded to go and see the Titanic, which is like a literal graveyard a couple thousand meters down below the surface of the ocean. Just absolutely crazy.
Shout out to the Titanic, though, for still taking down rich people 110 years later.
Wild, huh? It's completely wild. And I'm just wondering when the next person who's going to be like, it's not going to happen to me, and they go down there in another one of these submersibles. The craziest thing to me about that submersible is the fact that it can't be opened from the inside. So even if they would have been like bobbing along 6 inches under the surface of the ocean, and they could have just opened the door and like immediately been like in the fresh open air, they wouldn't have been able to do it. Like they would have never known where they wouldn't have been able to get out even if they were 6 inches underwater. It's absolutely nuts to me to think about the hubris and the insanity and the maniacal tendency of people who take on the ocean in such an absurdly extreme way.
One thing that everyone should absolutely do at all times is respect the ocean.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. You can be, man, I have a story about that. In 2007, I got a job at a YMCA camp in Hawaii called Camp Erdman. And Camp Erdman is famously known locally as the site where the TV show Lost was filmed. So all of the yellow houses on the TV show Lost are actually camp cabins at this YMCA camp that I used to work at. So the first day that I moved to Hawaii from the middle of Missouri, notice the major difference here. Missouri has no ocean. Hawaii is surrounded by ocean. So I go there, and this guy from Chicago, also with no ocean, and I take out these kayaks and we just get into the water and we're just paddling around. And then all of a sudden we notice that we're like half a mile down from the camp. Like we look back at the shore and camp is way off in the distance down the shoreline. And we were essentially being swept out to sea on these kayaks with no supplies, no water, no food. And we had been at this camp for maybe an hour and a half. So all of a sudden we see people from the camp running down the beach full speed, waving at us. And we started to realize that we were being swept out on like an ocean current, like next stop Japan, basically. Because when you're in Hawaii, there is nothing anywhere close to you. And we realized that we were being swept out to sea, essentially. And so we just started frantically paddling, and we managed to wash up a couple kilometers down the beach. But it was absolutely terrifying how it took a situation like that for me to realize that the ocean is never to be messed with at all, because I very quickly was being swept out to sea. And I was 22, 23 years old. So total moron. And so, yeah, I totally get you.
And that's pre orcas going after boats.
I know. Yeah, man, somebody posted on Twitter the other day, Orca versus Yacht. There's a new band. They're starting a band called Orca versus Yacht. And I just loved seeing that.
Yeah, all over that.
Okay, so let's talk about the other version of this song. War is Peace. And we'll have a chat about this one from the Fat Records compilation. So we've got this opening lyric. 4 more years of war is peace, ignorance is strength, and slavery is freedom. So from the book 1984, these slogans were created by an entity known only as the Party, but this is in 1984. And it's, the words are written in like enormous letters on a white pyramid at the Ministry of Truth, which, they're obviously contradictory statements, which is indicative of the concept in the book 1984, doublethink, which is what the book is very famous for, getting people to, doubt their own intuitions, getting people to accept things that are, contradictory to common sense. And the motto is written on a government building for the Ministry of Truth, which suggests that the author is trying to convey that these statements are somehow true for the society that has been constructed within the novel itself. And there are many contradictions throughout the book. And if anybody's ever read 1984, you'll be well aware of this. And me going into detail on it here would just be banal minutia. But Orwell opened the book in this way with these phrases on purpose to introduce doublethink. And what that does is it allows the people of Oceania or however you pronounce it within the book to live with alongside constant contradiction in their lives. It's the ability to hold 2 opposing ideas in one's mind simultaneously, sort of like the concept of cognitive dissonance, which is
the best example in the book that I can think of is the Oceania is at war with Eurasia, and then not at war with Eurasia. Like it's just constantly flip-flopping and no one actually knows but that's like the theme that kind of continues throughout the book, is that one specifically.
Yeah. I love that example. It's been 10 years since I've read 1984, but I've read it twice, and every time you get something new out of it. And the fact that like 1984 is constantly bandied about by both sides of the political spectrum in the United States is really fascinating as well. Like, you'll have the right talking about the Democrats as the arrival of the 1984 reality, and you'll have the other side saying exactly the same thing about the other side. Like, this book has been so painfully driven into the ground as an example of all of what is happening to our society, where both sides are saying that the other side is creating a 1984 totalitarian approach to authoritarianism. And it's really exhausting. And, talking about 1984 is almost just kind of overdone at this point. Like, anytime a politician talks about how 1984 is being created, I'm just like, man, shut up. Do something. Do your actual job.
I think there's obviously no stat on this, but I think 1984 is probably the book that's more misrepresented and spoken about by people who have never read the book than any other book.
I think you're right.
Crazy.
Yeah, I think that you're totally accurate in that. And I've read it twice, and I even struggle to really talk about the book because there's so much to it that it's just become a caricature of itself in like the modern media discourse. Like, the people who are talking about it can't even really refer to any examples within the book. They just use it as like the scary thing. So
they just end our conversations with 1984, and you're like, sweet, I love Panama.
Yeah. So we've got this the next line, which I really love, and which is extremely complicated. May all your interventions be humanitarian. So this is a really deep line that goes into so much history that is, could be an entire series in and of itself. This one line could be, and maybe is, a podcast series in and of itself, the subject of countless books. Humanitarian intervention is defined as actions undertaken by an organization or organizations, usually a state or a coalition of states, that are intended to alleviate extensive human suffering within the borders of a sovereign state. So if you think about the history of human conflict, you have all these little conflicts that spring up, and what happens is you assess what is going on in a spot. You predict and analyze what sorts of violence, casualties, and loss of life is occurring. And then you weigh the possible outcomes and negative consequences of what would happen if a government or an army or a military or an alliance of these would get together to stop or intervene in what is happening. So the term humanitarian intervention is bandied about as something with a greater purpose, right? To save a group of people in a place that are being victimized in some way. So you weigh the pros and cons of going in and stopping what is happening. And so some examples of candidates from like the 1990s. So some prime candidates for 1990s interventions were often listed as Sudan, Rwanda, Angola, Somalia, Burundi, Liberia, Iraq, Sierra Leone, Bosnia, and Chechnya. So if you take an example like Chechnya is next to Russia. So intervening in a place that is right next to Russia, what happens is you assess the likelihood of retaliation from a neighboring state like Russia. Right? If you intervene in a place like Kashmir, which is right between Pakistan and India, if you don't involve these nuclear states in an intervention plan, then what are the consequences that stem from that. So weighing the pros and cons of intervening in a place where violence is being done is makes my mind spin when I think about it. And so how does someone do this and not make the problem worse or cause far more deaths than would otherwise be occurring? Because an intervention can go so badly and make a problem so much worse, which I don't know anything about this stuff. This is like so far beyond my ability to comprehend, because you can cause so many more deaths than would otherwise be occurring by intervening, quote unquote, in a humanitarian way. So pretty much no matter what, with interventions and without interventions, deaths occur, people suffer, casualties occur. The force attempting to intervene in a humanitarian way will almost certainly cause plenty of bad to also occur. So this is a crazy amount of like weighing options that I know nothing about.
It's because at the end of the day, we're talking about humanitarian intervention, but like, even of the places you listed, how many of those interventions, air quote, were truly selfless in that the actual intervention was taking place? Like the people doing the intervening are always usually going to get something out of it.
Yeah, like oil reserves.
Take something out of it, right?
Yeah. I mean, if you think about like heavy metal mining for things like technology, if you have like oil drilling for, running our entire economy, like there's products and extraction that occur through these interventions as well. So who is getting what, who is losing what, and how much extra violence and problems are caused, but there's always going to be money involved and, extraction of resources for sure. It seems like.
It's like a international version of being squeezed by the mob. Like, we'll help you out, but it's going to cost you.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And then we get into the election stuff about this song. 4 more years of pay-to-play politics, power, and influence. 4 more years of legalized bribery and served corporate interests. It really reminds me of like it's a complimentary song to what is being described in the state lottery from Less Talk More Rock. Does that feel like a complimentary line to you where they kind of speak to each other?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. I have no money. So any illusion of influence I could ever have is just like the tiniest sliver where, like my power and influence is like I go on like the Resist bot like app and I'm like, send letter to my representative. And I like write my little piddly complaints. And then I get the standardized form letter response from some congressional aide 9 weeks after I send the letter in the app. So I've accepted that I really have not much say whatsoever. And like, I was thinking about Buffalo as well. How a person who runs for office can just flat out cause certain projects to happen or not happening, like seemingly on a whim, like depending on who is your biggest donors. And when I look at the ways that developers are prioritized in all ways in Buffalo, New York, how almost every bridge is rotted through, how every road is bad, I see this happening all the way down to the local level as well.
I feel like the two people with the most influence in all of Buffalo are Josh Allen and whoever owns Wegmans.
Well, Wegmans is based in Rochester, New York. So,
but there's so many, like, there's like you can't go in Buffalo without tripping over a Wegmans. And I'm not complaining. This guy loves his Wegmans.
Yeah, Wegmans is incredible. So yeah, it's definitely Josh Allen. There's definitely the Pagulas, the owners of the Bills and the Sabres. There's a guy named Doug Jamal, who is a really well-known developer. There's that Carl Palladino guy who keeps running for office and, sympathizes with Hitler in his congressional campaigns, and is also a developer as well. So like, that's basically what Buffalo is like. It's not great.
I just remembered Scott Vogel moved back to Buffalo, so I'm adding him to that list as well.
Yeah, Scott Vogel, his purpose and meaning in this world is to get people to mosh. If you go see Terror or Buried Alive, Vogel is up there going, everybody move, crawl on someone's head. It's amazing watching Vogel serve his purpose in this world. Living in Buffalo, I've seen his various bands so many times, and his entire meaning of life is to get people to mosh. It's wild.
I'm adding one more Buffalo celebrity to the list. I'm adding Corpse Grinder to the list as well.
Oh, sweet. Well, and there's also a new Cannibal Corpse record out apparently. So another one of Buffalo's favorite sons there has a new record out. So we've got this. We're thinking about the time period of this song, right? 2000. So we're coming off of the Clinton years. We're going into the Bush-Gore election cycle in the U.S. So thinking about the context of these words is important here. Vote for Tweedledum or Tweedledee, and a framework of debate narrowed for you courtesy of the ultra-rich and the media that filters, but any voice that challenges their power, like Nader bounced in Boston by state troopers because he don't speak for oil tycoons and bankers. Oh, yeah. So the hopelessness that I personally feel about the political reality in the United States cannot be overstated. I feel completely hopeless. Okay. What I see is a country that has zero vision for how to make people's lives better. And what I see is a country that knows exactly what they need to do to make the country actually really cool. But doing so would force them to actually work, and doing work is hard. So why work and do things that are hard when you can just go off on each other in the news and keep everybody mad? But I love this Nader detail because in the 2000 election, I was 17, just shy of being able to vote. And when you're not old enough to vote in 2000 versus 2023 for people under the age of 18, it's very, very different. With the constant media, presence with our phones and our cell phone culture, things are way more different now with as far as being like plugged into current events and news, especially with like things like school shootings. Teenagers are way more plugged into politics now than I was when I was 17. So a lot of things that were happening when I was just below voting age were completely oblivious to me. So I went back and I revisited some of the Nader stuff. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I was just asking, based off of being 17 in 2000, did you have a cell phone back then?
No. Well, actually I did. I shared a cell phone with my mom. And so on Friday nights when I would go out with my friends, she would let me borrow the phone so that she could call me from the landline at our house. But my mom and I shared a cell phone when I was 17. Totally different than today, you know?
Yeah, like I didn't have a cell phone until 2004. When I was 24, I got my first cell phone. And I just think because, you mentioned for people that are under 18 listening, I'm like, first of all, do we have anyone under 18 that listens to this show? I doubt it. Out of the 10 people that listen to the show, are any of them under 18? I don't know.
Strongly doubt it.
But
yeah, we're talking to a very captive audience who is within 5 years of our ages. But the Nader thing was super interesting because Nader was running for president in 2000 against, or in 99 and 2000 against Bush and Gore on the Green Party ticket. And he was prevented from participating in live debates of any kind. And so I found an article from 2000 from the New York Times, and I want to paraphrase some of the sections that I found in it, where Nader thought that he could actually attend some of the debates after being denied a place on the stage because some students who were at the college where the debate was being held gave Ralph Nader a ticket for him to sit in the audience. So the Commission on Presidential Debates, which kept Nader off the stage in the actual debates because he hadn't gotten 15% in polling, they wouldn't even let him watch from the room or a side room at the University of Massachusetts Boston campus. So Nader shows up. He's got this ticket and he's smiling with his cheering supporters. And he gets off the bus, and a commissioned security officer with police officers told him that his ticket to the event would not get him in. And they instructed him by the commission that even though he has a ticket, he is not an invited guest in possession of the ticket to the event. And so he was kicked out. And this is a real example from the song that they're talking about. And so Nader was among other third-party candidates that were also prevented from participating to a great degree. So before the debate, judges were throwing out court challenges filed by Massachusetts libertarians to try to force organizers to include their candidate. And it was just this massive mess where voices were, the message was narrowed by the media to these particular candidates, Al Gore and George W. Bush. So when the song says narrowed for you courtesy, a framework of debate narrowed for your courtesy of the ultra rich and a media that filters, it is 100% true and completely factual that the third party candidates were bounced in these debates. And I mean, it's pretty accurate, you know?
When was the last time we saw a major debate with a third party candidate? Was it the Ross Perot era?
Well, okay. So if you watch primary debates, remember when like Trump and Rubio and all those people were running in like 2015, and they were having like the whole entire Republican field on stage at once. It was absolutely insane. So it can happen. But you also have to remember the format. You know, I've heard interviews with Bernie Sanders where he talks about the way that debates are structured for television. There's no actual exchange of ideas that are actually presented, right? It is these tiny little sound bites with no nuance and no depth. And when you think about public policy, nuance and depth actually is important, right? There's no way to talk about an entire plan for reviving the completely horrific infrastructure of the United States into a way that you can televise on a live debate and actually have it make any sense with any nuance, depth, and specifics. So the way that we receive information in these debates is completely useless in almost every single way. And all it does is it just makes everybody angrier instead of more informed. So watching them is a real struggle.
They're a classic case of how to say something while saying nothing at all.
Yeah.
You know, every question is just, I'm glad you asked that question. Let me talk about something almost completely unrelated.
Yeah. You pivot to your talking points, right? And so then what that does for the viewer experience at home is you start yelling at your TV. They didn't even answer the question. So all it does is it just yields a raged out response from viewers who are like, they didn't answer the question. They all are like this, blah, blah, blah. So it just is this cycle of pain and suffering that masquerades as some form of democratic engagement. And it's really disgusting.
Yeah, I can't say that it's something I enjoy partaking in with my free time is to watch a debate.
Right. Yeah. We can make a podcast instead. This is way more fun. So we've got the next line. Whose pursuit of happiness and liberty demands a rhetoric of fear to be the litmus test for viable heirs to the phony drug wars, the trumped up rogue states, the permanence of a war economy? So I got a few definitions here. Drug war. I was looking into this because apparently 2021 was the 50th anniversary of Nixon's war on drugs in the United States. And so much money that could be spent on improving neighborhoods, beautifying crumbling places, making amazing public transportation has been spent on creating a nation of imprisonment and permanently impoverished areas of society. So if anybody's curious about the 50th anniversary analysis of the war on drugs, definitely go and find those articles from just a couple of years ago, because it just talks about the mass failure of that policy and what the legacy of it is to this day. In a time when states are all individually passing legislation legalizing certain things that were criminalized for decades. So definitely recommend that. And it's really funny. You live 40 minutes away from me. And I love all the cannabis signs like on the Canadian side of the border where it's like this big X for the cannabis to bring it across the US border and everything. It's really funny the ways that the two things are discussed on this side and on that side.
It's legal in New York now, right?
Yeah, but the New York State legislative process is such an absolutely horrific joke that they've been trying to establish legalized stores and dispensaries for a long time now, but they can't make any decisions together. And so it's legal, but it's also like a complete joke because New York State is such an absolutely terrible place. So yeah.
I say this because last time I was down there a few weeks ago when you were in, well, I guess a month ago, when you were in Atlantic City, I was down that weekend and I drove by, like when you get off the highway, I go kind of along the waterfront part in Buffalo and I noticed like a dispensary there and I was like, I've never seen this before.
Yeah, there's limited permits are starting now, I think, but it's been an absolutely ridiculous spectacle for the last 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I can imagine because I'm up here, like every third business on certain streets is a dispensary.
Oh yeah, it's everywhere. Okay, so then we've got this next term, rogue states. This is a term which is applied by some international theorists to states that they consider threatening the world's peace, and they meet certain criteria such as being ruled by authoritarian or totalitarian governments that severely restrict human rights, sponsor terrorism, or seek to proliferate weapons of mass destruction. The term is used most by the U.S., although the U.S. State Department officially stopped using the term about the time this song was released in 2000. In 2017, at the UN, the U.S. president used the phrase publicly in a speech. In 1994, so we're thinking about the 90s leading up to the creation of this song. I found an issue of Foreign Affairs from 1994 where the U.S. National Security Advisor Anthony Lake labeled 5 nations as rogue states: North Korea, Cuba, Iran, Libya under Gaddafi, and Iraq under Saddam Hussein. And some critics of U.S. foreign policy describe the U.S. as a rogue state, which is very worth examining for listeners out there. There's a book called Rogue State, A Guide to the World's Only Superpower, which came out in 2000 by a man named William Blum, which suggests that U.S.-led interventions around the world during and after the Cold War have threatened the world's peace. And Noam Chomsky has also described the U.S. as a rogue state after the assassination of Qasem Soleimani. It's, nuclear proliferation and large numbers of nuclear warheads are the second in the world. The sponsorship of terrorists and guerrilla groups to overthrow opposing governments, especially in Latin America, the violation of human rights in wartime are all suggested of rogue states. And the argument is also being made by climate activists around the world that the U.S. is a sort of rogue state leading the planet towards ecological collapse through obstruction of actual efforts on climate relief and climate change efforts. So, so I bet a lot of people out there probably have a lot of thoughts on the U.S. as a form of rogue state as well.
I'm not going to argue with any of that, but you go to the U.S., you can also get Baja blasted at Taco Bell. So
yeah, I mean, I had a Baja Blast, I don't know, 6 days ago. It was delicious, so it's the agglutination to avoid thinking about our own home as an international rogue state, driving us towards complete climate devastation in a time when Texas is currently cooking under its record high temperatures in June. So I think it was 114 across most of Texas the other day, which is pretty toasty. So, I'm very critical of the climate here in Buffalo, New York, where I live, but I'm also glad that it's not 114.
Oh, you are getting solid days of like 78.
Yeah, but 78 is not warm enough to swim in Lake Erie. I need it to be 82. So I'm very, very picky on my swimming temperatures, but it's been great cycling here lately. I've been riding my bike a lot.
Due to my autoimmune condition, I thrive between 92 and 105. That's my sweet spot.
Yeah, I absolutely, being from Missouri, where it is a blazing hot place for the summertime months, 90 is like I dig it, man. It's something that I miss tremendously, living in this insanely cold and miserable place that I am currently stuck for the next 8 years. So I miss those baking hot summer days.
I will translate for our Canadian listeners in that, and European listeners, well, basically everywhere but America, in that Greg has been living in a world of 20 degrees.
Yeah.
And we both thrive in a world of between 30 and 35 degrees.
Bingo. Yep. Bring it. I love it. 30 Celsius. Amazing. Love it. Okay. I will now go back to fantasizing about baking hot summer days, but not 113. Texas, you are too crazy. What is 113? Is that like almost 50 Celsius?
It's probably close to, I'd say, like 44-ish. I'm doing as pure guesswork in my head.
Yeah.
But I remember one day when I lived in California, I would drive out to Borrego, like just the desert, like kind of 2 hours inland from San Diego. And I remember driving out there one day, and the temperature thing in my car said 46 degrees Celsius. And like you walked outside and it was just like you couldn't even breathe. It's like someone was choking you out. So I maybe it's 46 degrees Celsius what they're experiencing in Texas, because I don't know how they're alive, because you'd be outside for 5 seconds felt like you were being choked.
I am actually going, so 46 Celsius is 114 Fahrenheit. Yes. Okay. You nailed it. Your conversion was absolutely perfect.
I'm shocked.
You rock. Okay. So we've got this next line. I feel less hopeful and less human as I'm reduced to nothing more than. Does that sound familiar, Steve?
Yep.
Name and address withheld, reused lyric a couple of years later. It's really fascinating how this song's music and melody for the vocals were reused from Fine Day to become War is Peace, and then how a lyric from War is Peace gets repurposed a couple of years later on Potemkin City Limits in Name and Address Withheld. I can't imagine this was accidental. It's probably just a line that Chris really enjoyed and found out that it just fit really nicely in something that he was working on later. So yeah, nice little connection between this and the next record. As I'm reduced to nothing more than cheering on embassy bombings as the liars pave their way through 4 more years.
I think the theme of this episode is recycling.
Yeah, it is. It kind of is. I love that, though. I love seeing the process, the creative process of seeing how things can get adapted and adjusted over time. It's really neat to witness that process because, for your favorite band, so obviously Propaganda is my favorite band, seeing the behind the scenes meat and potatoes, the creative process of how things get adjusted and changed over time. I absolutely love seeing behind the curtain, right? And so this is kind of one of those things where you get to see a little bit behind the curtain to see how a couple of different eras of the band talk to each other and how certain things get reused and modified and turned around. And I just really enjoy the fact that this War is Peace version exists. And what it does for me as a fan to kind of see what their creative process is like and how they're always tinkering and moving things around from place to place.
It's especially interesting to see how stuff evolves after it's gone through the Kowalski process.
Yep. Yeah. And Todd loved Fine Day, still loves it, still loves the song Fine Day. So it's really cool to me that Todd was able to have an experience of being a part of one of his favorite songs and putting a new spin on it, because that's really cool that he wanted to bring this song back as like a full song in the band. But how it didn't become just the exact same thing with a Ryan Green production, how it became its own entity. And I mean, it's a really loved song. Like, people love this song on the compilation. It's a largely forgotten song. It's a deep, deep cut at this point in the band's history. No one has really ever asked me for an episode on this song. No one has been like sending me DMs for the last 3 years saying, when are you doing the War is Peace Fine Day episode? That just does not happen.
Like, straight up, this, like, preparing for this episode was my first time hearing the War is Peace version of this song.
Dude, and it's so good. And Paul and I talked a lot about in the interview about how it's really good. It's not amazing, but how it's pretty cool. So I liked Paul's thoughts on some of the things that he thinks aren't quite up to the level of like stuff as being as good as today's Empire's Potemkin City Limits material, but how it's a really interesting experiment, and I'm glad that it exists. So I don't know if you listened to the very, very end of the War is Peace version, but the last line says 4 more years of legalized bribery and served corporate interests. The word interest is cut off at the end of the sung vocal. So it is essentially sort of like symbolically silencing the band, right? I'm absolutely certain that the word interest was cut off on purpose and shortened at the very end, sort of like as a little being like, I'm standing up against this ridiculous 2-party system of Tweedledum and Tweedledee, and the notion of how ridiculous humanitarian interventions can actually be, but they get silenced at the end because really these things are just going to keep happening whether or not they protest against it or not. So I really like the way that the word interest was like purposefully cut off at the end there.
It's a fun little Easter egg.
Yeah, really cool. Because when you're 17, 18 years old driving around with this compilation playing in your car speakers and this song plays through the end, you're not going to notice that the word interest is cut off when you're just driving down the highway with the windows down and this song cranked up super high. So it's nice to listen to it really closely and notice that little cut off at the end. Any other thoughts on War is Peace that you haven't gotten to say? Because I've just been motor mouthing for the last 20 minutes.
No, I'm aligning with a lot of the stuff you're saying, and when it comes to both songs, I prefer the Fine Day version to the War is Peace version, like I said earlier. So
cool, nice. It's kind of fun how they're both sort of about the same thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The lyrics are totally different, but it's kind of like about the same stuff, right? The lack of power, the contradiction of, having this beautiful life, but having this really ugly, like, surveillance state on top of us, and then taking the surveillance state aspect of Fine Day and then tying in 1984 and seeing how the song has totally separate lyrics, largely about the same content and topic. So that's kind of a really cool little aspect that they didn't change really the meaning of the song a whole heck of a lot. But yeah, Todd said that Fine Day was a lot more personal feeling to him. So, because it connects way more to people's ordinary lives who grow up in like suburban comfort, privilege pockets, because so many of us did. So I am with you on the fact that I like the words more to Fine Day because it connects to my life a lot more than Ralph Nader getting bounced from a debate. You know what I mean?
Oh, 100%. And like I said earlier, I feel like just the juxtaposition between kind of the lyrics and the fine day and all that with the rawness of the recording in the quantity version, I feel like go really well together. Not that, like, obviously, you know, everyone loves a nice, really polished off propaganda song, but the rough around the edges is I think where this really shines.
Yeah. I found a band who covered this song at a live show. The band was called The Corporate Life. This cover is from 12 years ago. But I want to give you a little taste of a band that I found on YouTube covering this. So that Corporate Life cover sounds like this. So that was cool to find. Nice little treasure hunt. I just searched that out and found it.
When I was reading your notes, I actually really, really hoped that instead of it being a 12-year-old cover, that the cover was done by 12-year-olds.
Oh yeah, nice. That would have been amazing. But yeah, alas, it's a 12-year-old video at this point. So I did go on YouTube and I found some comments that I enjoyed. One says, they need to play this song in all history and political classes for the kids in America. Another says, I love how the last word interest gets cut off. You can't get better than releasing something like that as a giant FU to anyone who says you have to do something a certain way. Very topical of the song. Another says, partial quote, the full quote is, war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. I personally like this one from Orwell. Quote, political language is designed to make lies sound truthful and murder respectable and to give an appearance of solidarity to pure wind. What a great line right there.
Yeah.
Make murder respectable. It really talks about, it ties into that humanitarian intervention aspect.
Because all them people being vaporized in 1984.
Yeah, yeah. So how would you rank this one as a tune for the band?
So are we ranking them separately or together?
Sure. Yeah, you can do it separately.
So Fine Day, I'm giving a 3.7.
Ooh.
It's elevated. I like it.
Yeah.
I think it's a really, really strong song. And then War is Peace, I'm gonna give that a 3.
Okay, cool. I'm going to give the War is Peace version a 3 as well. I love that it's a Today's Empire's outtake. I love that they reused an old song that was already good on its own and, enhance the sound quality. Like, I'm a stickler for like clear recordings and stuff. So I'm just, I'm showing that I'm showing my weak, wimpy ears with regards to sound quality. I love that it flashes back to a time in my life when I was like, before I was like becoming politically aware, like the Nader stuff, the drug war stuff, the rogue state stuff. That was really interesting to investigate a little bit. It was interesting to learn a little bit more about the PRISM surveillance programs at the NSA. And so I'm going to go with a 3 for both. I like them both. And I like the Fine Day version more lyrically. I like the sound of the War is Peace version more. So I'm just going to go ahead and balance it out there and just give them both a 3.
I would love to know, for the 6 people that are listening to this, which version of the song that you guys like better.
Yeah,
So
comment.
Just comment, hit us up online and tell us which one you like better. And I'm interested to see your ratings.
Yeah. We could be totally wrong. I'm also down for more resources. Sometimes I spend months and months finding excellent resources and details. And this episode was a little bit more of a haphazard re-entry into the podcast world after a month off. So if you have any good resources on any of the topics we've discussed on this episode, I'm always up for something interesting. Send me some documentaries, send me some articles. We're always looking to learn more. But been a real pleasure hanging with you again, Steve, for this War is Peace 5-day double header. Thanks so much for hanging out, man.
Thanks. It was great to get back to it. And honestly, considering how little we went into this episode, it was far more structured than the Stand Up and Be Counted episode.
Oh yeah, less chaos. But it's been a good time. But if you want to get in touch, we're on Instagram and Twitter at PropagandyPod. You can email us at propagandapod@gmail.com. And we'll see you next time. Thank you so much for listening.
Fine day.